Let's talk about young adult genre again. Greetings, my name is Nina. Welcome back to my channel. So, last year I made a video about young adult slash contemporary fiction for people who do not like these genres. In this video, I said that I do not like young adult genre. I have news. My perception of young adult genre has changed. I actually quite like young adult genre. I'm more open towards young adult these days. If it's interesting enough and if it's written well, technically I've always read young adult, but I approached the young adult with a grain of salt. I was quite selective about the books. Sure, I didn't really like the genre, just certain books, but now I do like young adult. My perception of young adult has changed. It went from negative to positive, but one thing remained the same. I'm still selective about the books. I've always been, and I'm still selective. However, I'm more willing to give young adult books chances than I did in the past. This isn't a remake of my previous video. In this video, I'm going to talk about only certain young adult books. Some of them made it into previous year's video. And when I was about to list young adult books, I thought of these. So let's get started. So out of all of these books in the video, this one I read the first, and these books are pretty great. So Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Briggs. Yeah, the book has its own style as well. It's creepy in a good way. This is a page turner, I'd say. The book is done very well. It has a very engaging plot, and it doesn't have standard young adult cliches, maybe except for one or two, but still pretty solid novel. And I do like how the book looks. The edition is wonderful, the cover and everything. So this is about a 16-year-old Jacob Portman who goes from Florida to a small island near UK to uncover the truth about his grandfather's past. His grandfather dies mysteriously and Jacob goes to uncover. And on the island he meets these peculiar children. And also there are monsters that haunt them. Reread it in 2023, it's still thrilling. So the next book that I read at the end of the last year, Aristotle and the Dante books by Benjamin Alire Science. I'm holding the first one. Aristotle and Dante discovered the secrets of the universe. So this book is set in 1987. The main character is a boy named Aristotle. The book is written from his perspective. Yeah, both of these books are written in the first person. Aristotle, or shortly Ari. So Ari feels quite miserable until he meets Dante, and then everything changes. So Ari is quite a loner and he builds walls around himself, but then he meets Dante and Dante is slowly destroying these walls. The book is very fast paced and it has a quite short dialogue. And next we have a mystery thriller, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So the book is set in 2017. Prior to the start of the book, in 2012, a schoolgirl named Andy Bell was killed by her boyfriend Sal Singh, or at least that's what people believe. Then in 2017, a schoolgirl named Pippa Fitzamobi selects this case as her school project and she realizes that there's more to that story, that simply she was killed by her boyfriend. And she goes to uncover the truth, and there are people who want things to stay hidden. The book is quite fast-paced, so I do like the whole trilogy, but I still prefer the first one. The first one is still the best. Next book over here we have I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. Usually Alice Oseman has one protagonist, but this one has two. You have the lead singer of a popular pop rock band, The Ark, whose name is Jimmy, and the second protagonist is one of the many fans of The Ark named Angel. You have these two protagonists, the two main plot lines, and sooner or later, the two main characters they meet. And everything goes crazy. So this book explores the themes of fandom and what it means to be a fan, and what does a band really mean to you. And on the other hand, this book is also about what it's like to have fans. I do confess that for me, this is a quite extreme example. Maybe the Ark is the local version of One Direction, and the band's too big, and of course there are some disputes within the band and the management and the main character Angel. Yeah, the reason why this book is a bit an extreme example of fandom is because a lot of bands that I happen to like, they aren't super mainstream in a traditional sense of this word. And my approach towards bands is completely different, more reserved. I actually want to make a video about fans and being a fan and you name it. Let's talk about that topic in a separate video. And the next one is Radio Silence by the same author, Alice Oseman. Usually I show these books together, but I decided to show them separately because I wanted to talk about them separately. So Radio Silence is about how studying affects you. This is about how you should not be obsessed with it. Yeah, the main character, Frances, is called Study Machine in this book. And in her free time, she listens to this podcast named Universe City. And then she gets a new friend and her life changes. And then Frances finds herself torn apart between what society wants her to be and what she herself wants to be. And there is a mystery surrounding one of her friends. One of her old friends disappeared, and she has to uncover that. And you know what? Just like I Was Born for This, Radio Silence also deals with the topic of fandoms, but it's in a much more subtle way that I actually like very much. I like the approach towards being a fan and interacting with the creator you like. Here it's done better, but that's probably because the creator is quite niche, but still, I like it. So I also have Loveless by the same author. However, I only showed these two books because these two are better. I did not like Loveless that much. So I have Solitaire left to read and then all the Heartstopper thing. Okay, so these are the 5 young adult books that I really recommend because they're pretty good. But I have 2 more categories. Here, let's go to the books that aren't young adult. They're not officially young adult. However, they're close enough. So in this category, we have only 2 books. So the first book over here is The Giver by Louise Lowry. So this is officially a children's novel around the age 12. However, this is close enough to be a young adult novel. It's a dystopia about the main character, Jonas. Jonas or Jonas? Pardon me, but I hear Jonas as a name rather than the last name, and I pronounce it the German way, Jonas. Like the main character from the TV show Dark from Netflix. This voice is selected to become the receiver of a memory because he has the capacity to see beyond. He has the right qualities for that. He lives in this all-perfect society with sameness around him. And then he discovers the secret behind all this peace. And everything changes for him. And this book relies less on the world building and more on the character development. Yeah, I always say that this is the problem with dystopian novels. They are focused more on world building rather than characterization. And I recently realized that too much world building affects characters. Maybe I should talk about it in a separate video about world building versus characterization, because I also write and I tried world building and my attention shifted from characterization to world building. And the second book, when I finished reading, I thought this is a really good book for teenagers, without having the label of young adult. So, Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book, The Final Empire. So, I only read the first one. So, you have this almighty figure ruling the world for 1,000 years. And there are people called the Ska, and they are slaves. And everybody, the slaves and their masters, they both obey to this and this almighty figure. The world feels absolutely hopeless. But then there is this main character called Kelsier, who was captured when he tried to rob the almighty figure. Unfortunately, I do not remember his name in English. In Russian, he is Вседержитель, all holder. So in the past, Kelsier attempted to rob the Almighty, and he was caught and sentenced, but he escaped. And he gathers forces to overthrow the Almighty. So the book has two protagonists. One is Kelsier, and the other is a teenage girl named Vin. And both of them, they have superpowers. They're both Mistborn. Sanderson has unique magic systems. You need to have quite a huge imagination to write something like that. But my favorite part about this book is that this book gives you a sense of hope. So Sanderson does have a pattern. I noticed that in Way of Kings and in Elantris and in the Final Empire. So at the beginning, everything is awful. And the mentality of the people is built in a certain way. But then there is a character who thinks otherwise, and he slowly starts proving that things can be different. And by the end, he or she, they turn out to be right. And this is what I like about Sanderson's books. And finally, third and last category, 3 books that I want to read. Haven't read them, but I want to. So here you have Cursed by Frank Miller. This is an Arthurian legend from the perspective of Nimue. There is a Netflix show based on this book. Never watched it, but I really want to read the book. This is written from Nimue's perspective, so let's see how this turns out. So, never heard any booktuber talk about this book. I simply find it in the store. Snow Globe by Sang-young Park. This is a Korean dystopian novel. So the main character lives in a very cold climate. It's very cold, and the only entertainment that people have is watching the reality show. One of the reality TV stars dies, and the main character is selected to replace her because she looks like her. And when the main character, she goes to work on reality TV, she uncovers the truth about how it works. How far would you go to escape the cold? And finally, this book I've never heard the talk about either. This is also young adult, and I only found out about it when I saw it in the store, and I bought it only yesterday. So today is March 31st, and I bought it only yesterday. So Gone by Michael Grant. So this is the first book in Gone series. So the order of the books is Gone, Hunger, Lies, Plague, Fear, and Light. So the cover is pretty simplistic, and so are the titles. So the novel is set in Southern California, where everybody older than 15 disappears. Their disappearance means new order and chaos and terror. Escapism just doesn't get better than this. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I bought the book. And also the font is quite big. And this is the book I want to read the most of all. I think I'm going to like this, and I'm going to purchase other books in the series. And that's all. These are all the books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you know some great young adult books with a great premise and execution. Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. Goodbye.